you have enough of always seeing the same boring meta builds? Will you jump off the harbor bridge if you ever see another summoner, miner or chaos damage over time build? Is it time for some manly close range combat in your life? No? Well, then you are just like 95% of PoE players. But if you said yes, welcome to the guide, Exile. As some people like to say, yes, I am here to teach you the ways of the Crit EQ JUGG. Just be warned, unless you seek the meleeness and the juggness for no good reason, you might get disappointed! This build is only decently tanky, clears somewhat okayish, and actually needs investment to do both of this. So if you want to be OP without any effort, choose a different build. But once you invest a bit of time and effort into your EQ JUGG, you will be able to clear all content the game has to offer, including very woke, fully sextanted and scarabinized Tier 16 maps, all Conquerors, Awakener, Shaper and probably Uber Elder, very consistently and with practice, even consistently deathless. The core part of any attack build, the weapon. We use a meaty two-handed staff called Hegemony's Error, named after a legacy streamer who sadly doesn't stream anymore. I beast corrupted my staff to 30% quality, as I wasn't going for a corrupted implicit anytime soon anyways. You want the rolls on the staff to be at least 500 DPS worth of damage and over 8% crit chance, and that is before the quality corruption. Until you can get a 6-link staff, you can use the tabula rasa and still sit at over 5k life easily. But eventually you will get a calm's heart and become a tanky boy. And then you equip Abyssus and stop being so much of a tanky boy anymore. For those of you who are fine with dealing around 1 quin per second of DPS, you can also go for a different helmet. But in any case, you want an enchant for reduced earthquake duration on it. 30% is preferred, but 20% will do just fine at the levels of attack speed my version of the build currently sits at. Reduced and less duration modifiers will reduce the delay between slamming the ground with your big meaty staff and the aftershock explosion, that way increasing your DPS as well as making clear feel much smoother. Oh, and it will also allow you to get Vaal Earthquake ready faster. On boots you simply look for life, resists and movement speed. Even though we are leap slamming around most of the time, when using Vaal Earthquake, high movement speed actually means higher DPS. Get some spiked gloves with life, resists and maybe some accuracy or attack speed on them. Tomb Fists are also a good option here. Rings should ideally have the life and resist you need. Some crit chance, accuracy or melee damage do help. I have vulnerability on hit from a Warlord's influenced ring. Alternatively, you can also corrupt a vulnerability curse on hit on gloves. But Yoji, why not go for Assassin's Mark like all the cool kids do? I'll have you know that vulnerability is higher damage than Assassin's Mark for this first build, in case you are wondering, and that is not factoring in the bleed chance. Oh, and power charges are generated by the staff. On the amulet, look for crit chance, crit multi, life, any dexterity you might need for your gems, and a bunch of life. Anoint Titanic Impacts for juicy crit stats and accuracy. It isn't even that expensive with only 1 opalescent oil and 2 really cheap oils. Flat physical damage does not generally increase the build's DPS too much, just as a general note, but it isn't a bad stat. But we get most of our flat damage from Abyssus and the staff itself, as well as from Earthquake, so adding a tiny bit on gloves or rings doesn't hurt, but don't go out of your way to get it. For a belt I use a Stygian Vise and socket an Onslaught on Kill Jewel in there to boost the clear. Makes the build feel a lot smoother, especially those Vaal Earthquake runs. In general, with a character you want to end up with around 0% chaos resistance unbuffed to feel really smooth and tanky against tier 16 influenced maps, Chayula Breaches, Awakener and Mr. Poison Boy, in case you are planning to run those. Try to get jewels with increased damage and crit multiplier. Like these examples here. Those are actually not that expensive, as long as you get one where there's at least one staff roll on there, because not many people play crit staves these days. Important note! You want 1 physical damage leached as life roll on one gear piece and 1 physical damage leached as mana roll on another gear piece. This can roll on rings, amulets, jewels and gloves. I got the mana leech on a ring and crafted life leech via benchcraft on an amulet. The mana leech is needed for mana sustain, and the attack leech is really important once it gets towards sustaining against higher tier bosses. For flasks, I run an instant divine life flask of staunching to remove bleeds, a lion's roar to make knockback more consistent for charge generation, get some armor for molten shell, and of course the damage multiplier. Basalt flask of heat for freeze removal and to help mitigate physical damage with Abyssus on. A quicksilver flask of adrenaline to make Val Earthquake feel a lot more fun. The prefix on the flask ideally is increased effect and reduced duration. Lastly, I use a diamond flask of warding for extra crit consistency and to protect from curses. For your main links, get a level 21, 23 quality Val Earthquake. Those gems are actually not that expensive, with Earthquake being so far out of the meta. Link it with less duration, Fortify, Impale, Brutality and Pulverize in that order of importance. I also use an Ancestral War Chief link to Maim to increase damage taken on enemies, Ruthless to help stun some tougher enemies, Brutality for damage, or eventually, once you get a really high budget, you can swap out Brutality for an Awakened melee physical support gem, because with the quality on it, it intimidates enemies so they take increased damage. But this effect can also be obtained by using Toonfist gloves. For auras, I use Precision, Pride and Dread Banner, all eventually at level 20. Quality is huge on Pride, as it increases the area quite a bit. Quality does not matter at all on Precision, unless you're playing in a party, and also not too much on Dread Banner. Leaf Slam and faster attacks are for moving around. You can also link Blood Magic here if you want to, but then you don't have space for a portal gem, since we are a bit short on sockets due to using Kaum's Heart. As far as leveling goes, for ascendancy options, it doesn't really matter which order you pick, any order works. Just don't get undeniable last, as it really helps with making crits feel more consistent. The path of building, including the passive tree as well as 2 leveling passive trees, are linked in the video description below. We level as a Resolute Technique build with 2-hand weapons and spec into Impale early on to carry our damage. Eventually, you respec into Crit Staff. This build can be done on a league starting budget. I did this league. Just farm up a Tabula Rasa once you hit early maps and use an unlinked Hegemony's Era until you can afford to link the staff or buy a linked one. I recommend leveling with Ground Slam and any decent rare or unique 2-handed axe or mace until you get Sunder at level 12. Good links for Sunder are melee physical damage, Ruthless and Maim. At level 28 you will get Earthquake. Link it with less duration from the library quest as soon as you can, as well as Fortify and Impale. You can replace Fortify with Brutality at level 38, and that should be enough damage to get you past Act 10 Kitava as long as you upgrade your weapon whenever the damage begins to drop off significantly. Once you reach level 68 you can equip Hegemony's Era and begin your respec into Crit Staves. Lastly, for bandits you can pick Alira, which I did, or the passive points. Both works perfectly fine. For Pantheon, I suggest Brine King to prevent stun locking and upgrade it with reduced chill effect, because chilled ground can get quite annoying should your heat flask run out. Lastly, we take Soul of Shakira for poison immunity, which does help against the poison boy in particular and chaos damage over time in general. Consult the Path of Building link below for neatly bundled information. Ask any questions you still might have in the comments below. Subscribe for more Path of Exile content. Thank you to my Patreons for the support. I am Yoji, and I will see you soon.